Warhammer models are very expensive, and you have to be very rich to be able to afford them. They cost hundreds of pounds, thousands of dollars, millions of other currencies. This is not just a statement to YouTube with keywords and phrases like, my audience is very rich and have put a lot of money investing into their Warhammer collection that retain a strong market value years later, so that they give me a higher rate of income or anything. As if that would work. But it really sucks when the models you've spent a lot of money buying, spent so long collecting and painting and converting, then don't end up being very fun to play on the battlefield. The deathguard is struggling. I offered help and you voted, and so I'm scrapping the Mystery Chaos video. It wasn't very good, it was all about Abaddon, and that's not the pun, that Abaddon wasn't very good. It was about Abaddon and Terminators. I didn't have much to say other than put them together, and then I made a Sarah Connor joke about Terminators, but that doesn't work when we already have a separate faction that are based on the Terminators from the Terminator franchise, right down to wearing skin to appear human and disguise themselves. Though the Deathguard are a low-performing faction, you can still have fun with them, and I'll help out with army construction to have, for the next few months, more likely chance to win. Not guaranteed, but should let you feel that the games are closer and you had a bit more of a chance. When constructing an army list, you are going to be partly constrained by your collection, but since a lot of people have the start collecting boxes from 8th edition, which are where most of you got the Deathguard from, I'll be using a lot of units that are included in that set. When you're constructing any army list, you want to do one of two things. Either play to the army's strength, or choose units that counter their weaknesses. The Deathguard main strengths are being tough and being able to wound their enemy with lots of lethal hits and twin-linked things. Their weaknesses is the slow speed, which is a problem for a game all about moving onto objectives. So I have two ways of running Deathguard that will give you more of a chance. They are a bit extreme, but extreme disparity in points and ability requires some extreme solutions. None of this involves starting fires. So one way to run Deathguard is as a horde. Lots of Poxwalkers. 3 lots of 20 Poxwalkers. They're toughness 4 and don't have a save, but the 5-up feel no pain will be very good at keeping them going. And if you can get them into combat and killing enemy models, you regenerate that unit. This is why zombie hordes are very scary, and they only cost 6 points a model. Or you can go even cheaper and get some Deathguard cultists, and then you also have a little bit of speed. They have Scout 6, so they can move forward onto objectives in the first turn, and let you get some victory points, or deny the enemy some victory points, and start scoring your secondary objectives right away. And again, these can come in hordes of 20, so you can have full board control with a lot of models just using these. Back them up with some Plague Marines to actually do some shooting, and their variety of weapons that you hopefully have, not just with monopose models, and let them deal with a variety of opponents, and their toughness 5 and 2 wounds are still very useful. This is a style of play where the Space Marine type Deathguard Marines are your elite. So aside from a horde like that, you could instead go for very tough vehicles. This plays into the Deathguard toughness, and also some of these vehicles are really fast. The Blight Haulers can move 10 inches and are great at taking down those horrible enemy knights and other Imperial vehicles that are going to be hindering you. The Bloat Drone is also very quick and can move onto objectives much like the cultists can, but then it has a lot more staying power once it's there. If you want to defend your home objective, then a Plague Burst Crawler with indirect fire will be able to sit on that home objective, not be bothered too much about enemy deep strike because of its 12 wounds at toughness 10 and a 2+ save, while it can still be shooting its Plague Burst Mortar at the enemy. And if you do just want to fly at the enemy and keep hitting them, the Forted Bloat Drone with the Flesh Mower is very handy for sweeping away heavy infantry. And you don't have to stop once you've just hit an enemy. It can fall back and charge something else in the same turn. The drawback with the vehicles is that they cost a lot of points. What doesn't cost a lot is £2 a month to help support my videos. No signing up to any new website required. The Ko-fi link is in the description, and if you are, as rich model owner investors, able to help me out, that would be greatly appreciated. For either style of play, cheap Terminators to Deep Strike. These are also very tough, and 175 points for 5 Blightlord Terminators means they're coming in cheaper than any Space Marine Terminators like the ones just released in the Leviathan box set. Being able to deep strike means they can get around the board, so they count as being a very fast type unit, much faster than their movement would suggest. With a toughness of 6, they are very difficult to shift, and they do something that the deathguard do well. Lethal hits, rerolling wound rolls of 1, to get through the tough enemies that you may be facing. And also, in all seriousness, you don't need to just have deathguard units in your deathguard army. You can include nurgle demons. If you want even more toughness, include a beast of nurgle. If you want to spend even more points and get even more toughness, and some nasty combat and firepower combinations, there's also an array of Chaos Knights. In small games like those of around 1,000 points that you should be playing at the start of this 10th edition, War Dogs are very effective. Going from 2,000 points upwards, a Chaos Knight will dominate the battlefield, and nicely complement your army in terms of both its speed and its durability. Tactics. Yes, you're going to want some tactics. So if you are going with the Horde mode, one small unit to stay behind and hold your home objective, because even though you have the sticky objectives as the deathguard, the problem then is deep striking units, all of those Gene Stealer cult units, can come up behind you and seize that objective without ever having to remove any units from it. If you're going the more tough armoured vehicle route, a Plague Burst Crawler is the way to go. For the Hordes, keep moving up the board, one step at a time. Advance with those Poxwalkers, advance with the Cultists. Get onto the objectives, and then leave the shooting to your better Plague Marines and the elite units that are supporting them. Once you can flood the board, you can stop the enemy from moving where they want to move, and instead have to just hit this wall of zombies. And remember, if they do hit the wall of zombies, then every time you kill one of their models, you gain a new zombie. Typhus would be a good option to lead this unit, but just limiting yourself on characters and keeping it cheap means that you can have even more bodies to throw at the enemy. Like I've said, Poxwalkers are quite tough, and when the enemy is expecting a lot of vehicles and elite infantry, suddenly putting hordes of light infantry on the board is going to really mess with their melter guns and las cannons, all of which can now only kill one Poxwalker, not half of a tank. That is why going to the extreme ends is very effective, because it messes with the enemy weapon choices and target priority. Once you have board control with your Horde, you need to think about taking the enemy objective. And yes, you are quite slow, so any fast units you have, like the Blight Drones, or those Terminators, have them deep strike in and use their exceptional strength and lethal hit stuff to remove the enemy from their own objective, and now, in theory, you have control of every objective on the board. That is the plan anyway. Plans may not survive contact with the enemy. Going the much more armoured route, you may not have anywhere near as many models, but this is where the Deathguard's detachment rule of spread the sickness comes into effect. You control an objective at the end of your command phase with a Deathguard unit. That is your objective for the rest of the game until the enemy takes it off you. And so your vehicles can be moving up very quickly, taking out the enemy heavy infantry, charging around on one flank, or if you think, okay, the enemy has a lot of anti-tank weapons there, put some of them into reserves. Come on from the side and use rapid ingress when you do so. That means that you'll be able to move and charge in your coming turn. And again, if you can't get to the enemy objective with all of these tanks that are moving quickly, you can rely on your Terminators. Have a command point available so that you can reroll that charge roll when you inevitably fail it. Or again, rapid ingress. Turn up in the enemy turn. Unless they have their objective heavily defended, Overwatch and shooting from them is not going to be too effective against your toughness 6 2-up save 3 wound Terminators. And then you can move your 4 inches and then charge, now with a 5-inch charge. Much more reasonable and something you're more likely to be able to do. I really hope this helps. You Deathguard players need it. So that was some quick advice on how to play Deathguard. After you played a couple of games, come back to this video and let me know if it helped a little, or a lot, or was just way off and made absolutely everything worse for you. If you like the video, then it'll be in your liked playlist and easier to find. Aside from the occasional polls that I do, if you wanted to request videos from me, I also have that option on the Ko-fi page, under memberships. If you want to know more about how to use Chaos Knights in your Deathguard army, I have a whole video on Chaos Knights, and the rules interaction where you combine the anti-rule and devastating wounds. My darlings and viewers, have a great day of Deathguard in 40k.